to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings, and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wilding in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gonna be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, a Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans by fans. Unfortunately, your Kings lose tonight 118-125 to the Chicago Bulls. Davion Mitchell is out with a hand contusion, and De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis combined for 55 points tonight, but it is not enough. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to smash that like button. And if you would like to join the Royal family with Calvin, Vinny, and I, make sure you hit that subscribe button before the shot clock expires.
Yes, De'Aaron Fox did everything he could today to keep the Sacramento Kings in this game. The guy looks like a completely different player, especially on defense. But DeMar is still the man for Chicago, owns the fourth quarter. This game really was about the others, though. I mean, De'Aaron 33 points, DeMar 38, Domantas Sabonis 22 points.
Yep.
Vucevic 21. However, Kobe White
Killed it.
31 points. Javonte Green also added a bunch. This game was about the role players. Bulls role players really stepped up. Some of the Kings role players played well, but not well enough.
Yep. If you're listening via your favorite podcast platform, we would appreciate a 5-star rating. And if you would like to be a part of the show, you can always join us live after every single game on YouTube. We will be right back with your Kings Nightcap. We're here. We're not drinking beers tonight, Calvin.
Got the day off today.
I've been seeing everybody drinking beers now on their podcast, so it makes me not even want to drink a beer.
That's right. They can have the beers this time.
I'm just kidding. We'll be drinking next time for sure. Just taking a little break. We're having a week off with the Sacramento Kings. Calvin and I will be in the gym working on our games. We'll be testing our vocal cords, making sure we are fresh to come at you guys as soon as the break is over. All right, Calvin. So as we mentioned, Kings lose tonight. They rolled out the same starting lineup that they have since they acquired Sabonis. A much better start for Sacramento tonight, including some three-pointers by De'Aaron Fox. He had an amazing first quarter with 17 points. I know he was 6 for 6 from the field at one point. But the second half of the game was kind of a different story for Sacramento.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both teams shot the absolute lights out of the gym today. Both teams with 50, 40, 90 games, 50% from the field, 40% from three, and 90% at the foul line. The Bulls slightly better from the free throw line and from three than were the Kings. I mean, this game really much opposite of the game we just saw them play against the Brooklyn Nets, in which the Kings couldn't make a single shot. This just came down to who was going to have the ball last, it felt like. Who was going to make that game-winning shot or that go-ahead shot.
And DeRozan just killed it at the end of this game. Dude could not miss a shot. I want to give a shout-out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. Gothan, Mike, Lane, Fred. Happy birthday, Joe. Welcome, welcome. Glad you guys are all here joining us. Alfie, I see you there too. He says, I think De'Aaron's not playing any defense. None of the Kings played defense tonight. Maybe Mo Harkless, but
I actually have to disagree with that. De'Aaron Fox did play defense tonight. I mean, sometimes great players score a bunch of points, but the guy, the amount of effort that he's giving defensively is a complete 360 or 180, whatever you want to call it, to what he was giving 2 months ago. I mean, he's fighting through screens. He's moving his feet. He's cutting players off on the drive. He's really, really giving a lot more effort out there. It's not exactly translating into stops because it's a team game.
Yep.
But they were blitzing DeMar DeRozan all day long, trying to get him trapped high above the three-point line and force him to give it up. And when he did, the other Bulls players just knocked down shots. So it's one of those things. You know, I think the Kings' game plan was in the right place tonight. Bulls just knocked down shots, and that's how they won.
The effort and energy was definitely there. That's something they have been missing, before the trade deadline. So that was there. But, yeah, you're right. The Bulls did make shots, specifically DeMar DeRozan. I think this is his 7th game in a row, scoring over 35 points, and I think his 11th straight of scoring over 30.
Yes.
Dude is
he
absolutely
is a walking bucket.
He's ridiculous. I was actually trying to look through last season because I know we talked about whether the Kings should add him this year or not, and I think you and I were both in agreement saying, we shouldn't bring in DeRozan to this squad. Dude was lost in San Antonio, and he got revitalized in Chicago, and it's showing. I heard the MVP chance tonight. I would love for this guy to win MVP.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for him to win MVP. I think that he's going to probably move up in the ranks, obviously because he's on this huge scoring streak, but also because he's shouldering all this load without LaVine, without Caruso, without Lonzo Ball. He's had Zach LaVine for most of the season. But Zach has, been out these past few games, and DeMar has played even better than what he's been playing at all season long, which is an all-star level. The guy he's Michael Jordan reborn right now, literally. Yeah. He's doing stuff that Jordan never did with the Bulls.
He's even shooting threes. I saw this three late in the game that it just kind of around the rim, and then it makes it in, and I'm like, no way. This dude is making everything. But, hey, I want to get something out of the way real quick. I'm going to rant for a little bit here, and then we'll move on. But the refereeing in this game was absolute garbage. I know I don't like to blame losses on referees, and obviously the Kings did not lose this game because of the referees. You have to make shots. You have to execute. That stuff aside, the refereeing in this game was completely trash. I saw so many plays where, De'Aaron Fox got elbowed in the face. Sabonis seemed like he was on the ground for half of this game. It was just over and over. It was one-way, one-sided calls. It was pissing me off. And then at the end of the game, they go and trap one of the Bulls players. He leaves his feet, throws a bad pass. One of the Bulls catches it and falls on Sabonis, and the foul is called on Sabonis. It's bullshit, Calvin.
Yeah, unfortunate calls for sure. Those calls didn't do anything to open Kobe White or an open Javonte Green from three, though.
And Stewart's right here. That out-of-bounds call was garbage.
Yeah.
But
it was
like
a close.
It happens.
A close game all the way through. Anytime you have games like that, officiating calls in general are going to feel like they're more magnified because it's a tightly contested game, that comes down to the wire. Like you said, it's not why the Kings lost tonight.
Yeah. And, you always have to adjust. If the referees are letting the game go a little bit more physical, if they're letting you play through things, you just have to adjust. That's the job of a player. But as a fan, I was very, very frustrated watching the refereeing during this game. I really was. All right, I got that out of the way. Just had to vent a little bit. I'm feeling a little bit better.
Yeah.
And
you sure you don't need a beer after that, or?
Maybe. We'll see. All right. So what do you want to talk about first, Calvin? We got a lot to talk about in this game. I want to talk about DiVincenzo. I want to talk about Mo Harkless, De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis. I want to talk about the Bulls bench.
Yeah.
Because, if I were to say anything critical of the Bulls tonight, the bench sucked. Only 8 bench points for the Bulls.
Yeah, well, again, most of their bench players are now starters because all of their starters are hurt.
Yep.
So that, just like we've seen with the Kings in the past where a lot of their starters have been out, they've had to pull guys like Davion into the starting lineup. It's affected their bench tremendously.
Yep.
Affected Chicago's bench again tonight. I will say quickly, the Kings really did miss Davion Mitchell tonight.
Definitely.
Not so much maybe for his scoring necessarily, but he could have been one of those guys that they could have really used on Kobe White on the perimeter. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a great defender. He would have made it much more difficult for him, I think. So they definitely missed having him out there. That being said, I think the starters are starting to get a little more obviously, they're building chemistry. They're working a little bit better together. Mo Harkless tonight, he played 30 minutes, and he was obviously out there for his defense more than his offense in this game. But the Kings really, we've talked about it all year long with him. When he only has, if he's going to play that many minutes and only score 2 points, that hurts the Kings, especially in a high-scoring game like this. They could have really used just a little bit more out of him or out of a guy like Richaun Holmes, who I know people are really bagging on right now.
Yeah, I mean, Harkless had 4 points tonight. Both of those were dunks. I know his first dunk was like in the third quarter. DiVincenzo threw him a nice pass right up the middle, easy dunk, but Harkless was basically absent on offense for the Sacramento Kings tonight. But he's done that multiple times this season. You know, we've seen games where he's had 10 points. We've seen games he's had 16 points. We've seen games with 2 points, 0 points. The Kings usually win when he has double-digit points or more, and they usually lose every other game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to put it. But as you mentioned, the Bulls were missing a lot of players tonight. Lonzo Ball's out. Alex Caruso's out. They said that he should return to dribbling in the next couple weeks. Zach LaVine was out. Patrick Williams was out. And then Davion Mitchell was out with a hand contusion. So a bunch of mix-ups, as far as rotations and lineups for both teams. But the Bulls were able to prevail. Calvin, let's take a look here at the box score.
Let's do it. De'Aaron Fox, another huge game for him. 41 minutes tonight, 33 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals. Shot fantastic once again, even 2 of 5 from 3. I think we can safely put to bed or put to rest the free throw concerns that we've had about De'Aaron Fox in the past. Guy's been a machine at the line over the past 6 or 7 games. He's shooting, I think, well over 85%. Did have 5 turnovers today. Ball's in his hands a lot, but obviously, you would want to cut down on that a little bit. Sabonis, another near triple-double in 37 minutes, 22 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals as well. Holiday and Barnes with 18 points and 17 points, respectively. And Chimezie Metu, the only Kings player in double figures off the bench with 11. DiVincenzo added 9. As the Kings basically played an 8-man rotation today. Trey Lyles gets in there as the ninth player for 5 minutes, but it was pretty much an 8-man rotation for the Kings today.
Yeah, Ramon, we're going to talk about the draft here in the second section, so make sure you stay with us here because we'd love to talk about the draft. Another disappointing performance by Richaun Holmes. 10 minutes, 0 points, 0 for 3 from the field, only 2 rebounds. I mean, at this point, I don't really know what to say. There's not many more excuses for him. We're like, oh, he's having problems readjusting to the goggles. He needs to get back in shape. Now he lost his cousin like last week. It just seems like at this point, it's like, okay, we made all the excuses. We gave you time. We tried to be patient. You're adjusting to a new role. But, you're a bench player now. You're on the bench. You're playing against bench players on the other team. Let's see something. Let's see some stats. Let's see some points. Let's see some rebounds. Let's just see something. I honestly think he's missing the playmaking abilities of a guy like Tyrese Halliburton. But what's your thoughts on Richaun?
Well, I mean, all of the things that you just said are right. He's had a really tough year, mentally, physically, all of that stuff. So, he's human just like the rest of us, and that's going to affect him on the court as well as off the court. But I think the biggest thing for him right now is that, like you said, he's both having to adjust to a new role and coming off the bench, but Richaun is a player that is very dependent on specifically the guards around him for how he produces offensively. So now he's played, all of the last 1.5 seasons with Tyrese and De'Aaron Fox primarily. Mm-hmm. And then, before that, multiple seasons with De'Aaron Fox. Now he's not really playing with either of those guys anymore. He's having to adjust to play with people like Dante DiVincenzo, Davion Mitchell. So he's working with completely different guards who have completely different skill sets than De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton do. Again, those are more excuses. I get that, but they're very real in how it affects how he plays on the court. You add all the other stuff on top of it, the injuries, losing somebody that's really close to you, it's going to make it really difficult. So hopefully he comes out of this a better person and a better basketball player and just continues to fight through the adversity. But it's not easy for him right now. That's definitely true.
When you can't get your own shot, a lot of it is out of your control, right? Like, yes, when people set you up right and you miss the shot, it's on you. But when you can't literally get your own shot, so much of that is on the players around you.
Definitely.
It really is.
And
What's
everybody,
up, Bryce?
I'm just, you got your little rant in earlier. I'm going to get my little rant in right now. I just, obviously we do, as fans of this team or as people that cover this team, all that stuff, you want to see Rashawn play better. And the Kings need him to play better if they're going to be a legit team. But to say that the Kings are losing games right now solely because of Rashawn Holmes. I'm not saying anybody in this chat is doing that, but I see a lot of people on social media doing things like that. That couldn't be farther from the truth. The Kings played a good enough game to win this game today. They scored 118 points. They shot the lights out, but they gave up 125. And, yeah, Rashawn obviously plays a part in that. He's on the floor when they play defense. But to say that he is the reason that the Kings are not performing the way they should be right now is just flat out wrong, in my opinion. I mean, there's so many other things that go into to how the Kings are playing right now. You take into account how decreased of a role Rashawn Holmes is playing on this team too. He's one of the last areas of concern, I would say, for them right now.
Yeah, what up, Sean? Good to see you. It was a good game. I mean, we lost the game. Yes, we're frustrated. The referees, some disappointments and stuff. But, hey, the Kings were actually playing competitive basketball. We forget this Bulls team is, I think they actually have the best record in the East now after winning today.
Yeah, the top of the East is so jumbled. But they've been right up there basically the entire year.
But they're a great team. And so
they're a phenomenal team. And people forget about the Bulls, too. They've played probably the majority of the season without their main group of players. I mean, a lot of teams have been in that situation, but the Bulls have been really affected. They were the first team to get hit with COVID. It ran through them really, really big. They actually went on a huge win streak during that while they had all these players out. Now they've got injury after injury after injury, and they've still performed all season long. So this team is legit. I mean, they've got the right group of people. Again, we talk, a lot about the Kings, how their role players are kind of falling into place now that they've traded for all these new guys. And the Bulls are ahead of them in that regard. They've started this season knowing exactly who they were, and they've played that way all year long.
Yeah, you got to give credit where credit's due. The Bulls are playing very, very well.
They are who we thought they were.
I also want to give a shout-out to Justin Holiday because I thought he played exceptionally well tonight. 18 points for him, 6 of 12 shooting, 6 threes. Dude was trying to match Kobe White's performance tonight. Unfortunately, he couldn't do it. But I love the game out of Justin Holiday tonight. But Calvin, I want to talk a little bit about Sabonis. I see a lot of people here in the chat saying that Sabonis was getting beat up all night by the Bulls. You look at the team stats. Unfortunately, the Kings were out-rebounded in this game.
Yep.
But Sabonis, almost a triple-double tonight. 22 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, 3 turnovers, 10 of 15 from the field. Another amazing game from Sabonis. He definitely was much more aggressive than he was in the last game. But I just want to hear your thoughts on the Ox.
Love the Ox. Love everything that he brings to this team. He's going to look like he gets beat up a lot because that's just the style of play that he plays with. He's a bruising force inside, able to clear out space for himself, and so when you play that way, that's how teams are going to defend you. They're going to be really physical with you because they don't have any other option. If you're physical first, you got to have some physicality back playing defensively, and then it's a question of how are the refs going to call the game, and you can, as we've already done today, argue whether or not it was correctly called. But I mean, he's exactly what this team needed. It's plain as day to me.
One of the things they need.
One of the things they needed, but a huge piece of the pie. I mean, I don't want to undervalue or understate what he brings to this team. The fact that De'Aaron Fox is a completely different player now with him, I think Harrison Barnes is also going to greatly benefit from playing alongside a guy like Domantas Sabonis. He's a fantastic pickup for this team, and I think it's only going to get better, as he continues to play more and more games.
Yeah, the frustrating thing for me is only 2 free throws tonight for Sabonis. because he was involved in almost every single play when he was out on the court. Like I said, it seems like he was on the ground half of the game. He was really getting beat up inside. He had to work for every single bucket that he got. I think he should have had 10 free throws tonight in the game.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's the way it goes in the NBA. I mean, we said that earlier in the year about De'Aaron Fox. We felt like he wasn't getting to the free throw line enough.
Yep.
He's gotten to the line a lot, over the past month or so. And when you look at the total for the game, Kings shot more free throws than the Bulls, 22 free throw attempts tonight. And they've been up at the top of the NBA in free throw attempts all year long. 22 is pretty close to their average.
Yeah. And a couple of those were and ones for DeMar DeRozan on that mid-range where he's getting fouled and he still makes those shots. The dude is unbelievable in the mid-range. It's really crazy. What's up, Key Kings? Good to see you there. Calvin, I think Charlie wants to talk about coaching. He wants to talk about Alvin Gentry. It's on my list to talk about in the second section as far as next season and what to do this off season. But, we've had a 4-game little sample size now of Sabonis and Fox. The Kings are 2-2 in that. I just want to hear your thoughts on Alvin Gentry. Is he the right coach for this squad? Do you like what he's doing? I know he made some mistakes tonight, things that we'd praised him on earlier in the season about calling timeouts to break momentum, using his challenges at the right time. I don't think he did any of those things right tonight. But I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on him.
Well, first of all, when it comes to coach's challenge, that's actually less on the head coach than it is the other coaches. It's the ultimate decision to challenge a call is the head coach's decision. But he uses the information given to him from his assistant coaches before he decides he wants to make the challenge. So, yeah, I mean, you can always say, was it the right decision or was it the right time to use your challenge? But it actually falls on the entire coaching staff, not one person. As far as coaching in general goes, I don't think any Kings fan has really been 100% that Alvin Gentry is the next head coach of the Sacramento Kings ever since the day that he became the interim head coach, right? He's just the filler guy. It was always going to be that way. I've said numerous times that I thought he was a good person for the situation the Kings were in, given his experience in the league, also dealing with being an interim head coach. Yeah, a young team, a good offensive-minded coach. So is he the person that I would pick to be the next head coach of this team? No, I don't think that's going to change really regardless of how the season ends. But I do think that since this new group of players has come in, you've seen a shift or a change in the offense of this team. It looks much, much better.
Yeah.
And I go back to Buddy Hield. I really think that Buddy Hield, and I don't think I'm going to surprise anybody or change anyone's mind here by saying this, but Buddy Hield was just as a coach, when you're trying to put together a solid team offense, guys like Buddy Hield just ruin it sometimes for you. And he's not the only one or the only reason why the Kings offense wasn't, great at all times. But this group that they have now, even though they haven't played together that long, they're all willing passers. Sabonis is a fantastic passer for a big man, which really changes your offense in the NBA. They've got guys that can cut. It just seems like everything is more fluid, more solid all around. And I don't know exactly how much of that goes on the coaching staff and how much of it goes to the players. I'd like to think that it's a pretty even mix. So, again, Alvin Gentry's not my long-term answer, but he's what they've got right now, and what they're doing offensively is good. It's working. So I would continue to stick with that. Again, for me with the Kings, it's always going to come down to defense. I've never had a problem, or at least in the past couple of years, I've never had a problem with how this team plays offensively. They just can't stop anyone. That's why they don't win games.
So you're saying Gentry is Mr. Right now? But he's not Mr. Right.
He's not Mr. Right now. He's just what we've been given. They made the decision to fire Luke Walton early on in the season. So now you're stuck with this. It doesn't make any sense to hire a new head coach right now. You're not going to hire the candidates that you want right now because they're all in the middle of a season like everybody else. So this is what you've got to stick with for the rest of the year.
I agree with Brian here. He said, I think players need more games together. Bulls probably one of the tougher teams. I mean, that's exactly
absolutely
what it is. It really is. So looking here at the team stats tonight, it looks pretty good for Sacramento. 51% from the field, 40% from three-point range, 90% from free throw range, which is, something that we have talked about in the past. They shot more free throws than the Bulls in this game. They did get it out-rebounded. Assists were pretty even. Steals were pretty even. Blocks were pretty even. Turnovers were even. Points in the paint. This was a really even matchup, which is crazy to think because, both of these teams are trending in opposite directions, right? If you were to take the wins for the Bulls and the losses for the Kings and you flip them, they're pretty much identical at this point, which is crazy. Both teams have dealt with a ton of injuries, with new players coming on their team. Sacramento more recently bringing in new players. But I agree with Brian here. You just got to have more time, get these guys to know each other. They got to play together. I think this week off is really going to help them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, if the Kings come into this season with this group, this new roster that they have currently, and, they're in the playoff race at the time this game happens, we're all sitting here saying, man, that was a great game. DeMar DeRozan is just a little too much down the end, but this is an evenly a good, measuring stick game for a team that's trying to make the playoffs. The Kings just right now have this huge hole they're trying to dig themselves out of. So we're all, looking for extra problems like what's wrong with Rashawn Holmes and all this other stuff. This was a really evenly contested game between a really, really good team and a team that we think is getting a little bit better. So I think it's, again, encouraging. Like Brian says here, they just need some more reps. They need to play more games together. Didn't have Davion tonight. That hurts. But they shot well enough to win this game.
Yeah, and if Kobe White doesn't go crazy in this game, I think the Kings win this game. Nobody expected Kobe White to have 31 points in this game.
The guy's only averaging 13 a game for the season.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he's totally capable of doing this.
I mean, he did. He did it.
He did. Well, yeah, but I mean, he's a starter. I think a lot of people view him as a starter in this league.
Yeah.
And now he's the sixth man for Chicago. So his role, just like we've talked about Rashawn Holmes' role changing a lot, his role has changed a lot this year too. But it's also kind of freed him up a little bit because now when he goes out there, he really only has one job, and that's to put up shots and score points. And that's what he did today for sure.
So Jeremy Lamb sat out today with a left sore ankle. We didn't see Josh Jackson or Keita or Jones or Len or King. It seems like we haven't seen a bunch of those guys in a while. I know Davion was out in this game. But what do you think about this starting lineup of Fox, Holiday, Harkless, Barnes, Sabonis? Are you happy with this starting five? Would you switch it up? I was listening to the Kings beat yesterday with James Ham, and he was talking about Dante DiVincenzo potentially being a starter, stuff like that. I just want to hear your thoughts on this starting lineup. What would you do if you were Coach Cal?
I would keep it the same. I think that the starting lineup they're using is the right starting lineup. I mean, really, to me, the only change or tweak that you could make would be, like James is saying, it's the starting shooting guard. Who do you want? Is it Davion? Is it Justin Holiday? Is it Dante DiVincenzo? That, to me, all the other positions are solidified. I mean, Mo Harkless, he's been very up and down for the Kings this season, but I think in terms of what the Kings are trying to do right now, it makes a lot of sense to start him and Harrison together at the forward position because of their versatility, because of what they can give you defensively, rebounding. If Mo Harkless is able to score, that's a huge plus, and it changes the game a lot for Sacramento. But, when you talk about, well, who would you start over him? It's like, do we start Metu? Do they try to play two traditional bigs together, Rashawn Holmes and Sabonis? I don't think either of those are the right options. So I think that what the Kings are doing right now is good for their starting five. I certainly wouldn't be upset to see Dante DiVincenzo get a start. I think he deserves it. But to me, him and Holiday are pretty interchangeable, I would say.
Do you think having Justin in the starting lineup help Sabonis at all because they've played together?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You can see it. I mean, I think they said when those guys were traded here, they gave out some stat that something like 24 or 25% of all Sabonis' assists went to Justin Holiday. So they're very comfortable together. So it makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I already gave a shout out to Justin for his game tonight. 6 threes. Dude had an incredible game. But honestly, I feel like Dante is probably going to be the future shooting guard of this team.
I think that's what they want from him for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's this season. Take it or not? I don't know if it's next season. But, yeah, I think he's still coming back. I think, this was game 19 or 20, coming back from that ankle injury, which can definitely mess with your shot, which we've seen. He has been struggling to shoot from three-point range, but he did make a three tonight. I heard Katie with a new nickname, Downtown Dante. But the dude is shooting 34% from three for his career, which I have to say is pretty good. You know, maybe I'm backing myself in a corner here because you'd say, well, Buddy Hield, 40%, career three-point shooter. But for me, 33% and up from three-point range. You're basically averaging a point per shot, right? You make 1 out of 3, it's a point per shot. That's the same as a guy shooting 50% from the field.
Yep.
So I'm happy with him shooting these shots as long as he's open. Yes, some of them are a little early in the shot clock, but I love the defense. I love the rebounding. I love the energy and the effort from him, and I think the shot will come.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, people are still forgetting he's still coming off of an ankle injury. Like, he missed a lot of time this year. So now he's playing with a brand new team, and he's trying to work himself back physically. It's going to take a little bit of time, but he's a really solid player. I don't have any concerns about him long term.
Why don't you think Damian Jones got any playing time tonight?
Honestly, I don't know. The only thing I can really guess or surmise is that since they've traded for all these new players, the goal is to try, especially since we're getting towards the end of the season and the Kings are already on the outside of the playoffs looking in. The goal right now is to try to get these guys playing together more as a big unit. That means all the new guys are going to get minutes. They've completely shortened the rotation, and they've taken all these other guys that we're used to seeing, like Alex Len and Damian Jones, and they're not getting in right now. And I think that's basically just because the goal is to try to get these new players worked in around the core group of Kings players that they kept in the steal as well.
Yeah, and they don't need to showcase anybody for trades right now.
Right.
It's shortening up the lineup. They're trying to win games right now, and they're trying to make stuff happen. Damian Jones unfortunately didn't play tonight, but Davion Mitchell was actually injured, and so was what's his name? Jeremy Lamb was injured as well. All right, next on the list here, Calvin. The Bulls went on a 5-0 run to start the fourth quarter in this game. They had a bunch of shots after this. They could have gone on a 7-0 run. They could have gone on a 9-0 run. Unfortunately, the Kings were taking bad shots. They weren't getting good looks at the bucket. What do the Kings need to do to stop these runs? Because we've seen this as kind of a pattern in the past, right, where they just allow these teams to go on big runs. And I know 5-0 is not a lot, but it can definitely set the tone when starting a quarter. And the Kings were only down by 2 going into the fourth quarter. So it makes it a 7-point game. It just makes it a little bit harder for these Kings to get back into the flow. What can they do to stop these kinds of runs?
Well, one of the oldest adages in basketball is that basketball is a game of runs. So, I mean, the real answer is you're never going to stop runs completely. Like, teams are – it's just going to happen. The question is, or the thing to worry about is how can you limit the total number of big runs that a team goes on over the course of a game, and how can you make it so that those runs are just 5-0 runs or 7-0 runs? We've seen the Kings so many times give up 13-0 runs, 17-2 runs, 26-2 runs, stuff like that. Those are the things that you really can't afford if you're going to try to win a basketball game. And how do you stop it? I mean, there are a variety of different things. I know since everybody thinks Alvin Gentry is a terrible coach, the first thing people are going to say is, well, he needs to call timeouts quicker. And you can do that. I mean, sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. A lot of it is an in-game adjustment too. I mean, especially in the start of a fourth quarter when a team's been playing a certain way and then all of a sudden they go on a run to start the fourth, you might have to make some minor adjustment defensively or offensively from the way that you've been playing the whole game. Maybe it's double DeRozan in a different area of the court, or there's no one answer, I guess, is what I'm trying to say to this.
Yeah.
But the key is how do you, like I said, make it so that the runs are not extended runs and you don't see huge runs happen multiple times throughout the course of a game. When you shoot like the Kings did today, that's going to help a lot because just shooting 40% from three cuts down on a lot of potential runs that a team could go on.
Mm-hmm.
Again, how do you find a way to rebound and close stuff out on the defensive end? That's the real way that you get a stop or cut a team off when they're going on a big run. DeMar DeRozan has been the king, and the Bulls in general have been the best fourth quarter team all season long. So it's much easier said than done to say, well, all right, we're going to shut down DeMar DeRozan in the fourth quarter and, basically just turn the faucet off on this team. Like, it's not always going to work that way.
I think Charlie has a good point here about Chimezie guarding DeRozan. I also saw him jack up a three at the start of that fourth quarter as well. I haven't been as impressed with Chimezie lately as I have, early on in the season.
Yeah.
I feel like he just keeps getting beat on defense over and over and over again. Like, he doesn't have the lateral quickness or something, but he just seems to keep getting beat by guys.
I think he does have enough lateral quickness to be a good defender. He's got great length, great athleticism. I think he has all the tools and the makings of a good defender. What he does do a lot is he gambles, just like Tyrese. He can get a little bit too lackadaisical when he's an off-ball defender, not staying fully aware of where his man is and the ball at the same time. And then, as the ball gets swung around the perimeter, he's then caught in a bad position, having to recover and all of that stuff. And, I think that for a young player like that, when you come into a team that doesn't play any defense, how are you going to get better? Right? Like he needs the mental attitude of somebody like a Jimmy Butler or something like that to really lock him in defensively. I think he is capable of being a good defender. Good timing, good shot blocker, quick leaper, great leaper, all that stuff. So he has all the tools, but I mean, I agree. I don't think him on DeMar DeRozan was the right answer. However, you can't have Harrison Barnes and Maharkless play 48 minutes in a game. So somebody else is gonna have to take him for a little bit.
Yep. Shout out Sass and B Walston. Good to see you guys here in the chat. All right, Calvin, let's jump here into your keys of the game, and then I'm ready to move on to the next section. We got a special guest tonight, Skip from Sacktown Breakdown.
Yes. I'll go through them real quick. Number one was try to force the ball away from DeRozan. What are you going to do? That's what every team tries to do to Chicago. And the Kings did do, I think, a good job of that in spurts. They were, like I said, trapping him, high early on in the offense. As soon as they got the ball across half court, they would send a couple guys at him. But when he rotated the ball out of that double team, the Bulls just knocked down shots a lot. And then, DeMar DeRozan is also a great player, and he can score on double teams pretty easily. So easier said than done, and unfortunately he made a bunch of tough shots again in the fourth quarter. Number two was got to guard the three. This Bulls team has been one of the best, if not the best, three-point shooting teams all season long, and they lit it up again today, over 40%, over 41% from three. And number three was take care of the ball. The Kings did a better job of that tonight than they have in the past couple of games. Only 13 turnovers today, which, again, if they can stay in that 11 to 14 range per game, I'm okay with that. It's when they have these lapses where they make terrible turnovers on multiple possessions in a row. All of a sudden they go from having, no turnovers in the first quarter to 7 early on in the second. That's what they really need to worry about and focus on cutting down.
Yeah, I'm just reading the chat here. B. Walston, 7 of 21 on the road. I mean, when your team is this far below 500, 16 games below 500, your road record and your home record are both going to be trashed. But, they're making changes. They're adding players. They fired a coach. Hopefully they'll get some time together over this next week. Maybe we'll see some positives coming out through the rest of the season. That's also one of my topics of the next section. And, Monty said in his press conference he has all his picks and he's prepared to make a big move this offseason, which could even include signing a guy like Zach LaVine, who is a free agent at the end of this season.
He is a free agent.
We'll see how that goes. All right, guys, we are going to take a quick break here. So if you need a chance to break the seal, here is your chance. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit more about your Sacramento Kings with Around the Crowd.